Okay, well, that sounds great. Well, it really is a pleasure to be here today and to talk with the group. I've got a room full here in New Orleans with our TL1 scholars, and I know that we've got a number that are either online or are actually in your room. So it's a great opportunity to have to talk to you all about mentoring. As I've talked to students as well as faculty, this seems to be an area that is underdeveloped in most people's planning for their career, and is a missed opportunity in moving your career trajectory forward. So this is a great opportunity for me. So you all know I co-direct the TL1 program and also several roles, administrative roles at Tulane. But most important, I'm still very active in my own research, and I'm also active in mentoring both with faculty as well as junior scholars. So this is a fun thing for me to do. I have a grant due today, so I'm giggling about that, but it's a great opportunity to be here today. So I don't know how many of you all know where the word mentor comes from. And I, looking at the looks on the faces in this room, people are going, not really. But if you know anything about Greek or Roman mythology and Ulysses or Odysseus, however you want to look at it, when Ulysses was going off to fight, he thought it was a 2-year war, but it ended up being a 10-year war. You know, he was going much longer. He was very concerned about his newborn son, because not that he was worried that his wife would not take care of him, but was very worried that while he was gone, and as his son was growing up, and if he were gone longer than he expected, or if something adverse happened, who would help guide him? Who would help direct him and show him, you know, the way on how to develop as a man and to do what he needed to do? And so he knew that he would be loved by his family and that sort of thing. That was not a question or a concern, but he wanted someone who had walked the walk and talked the talk and could truly provide the guidance. So his trusted friend was Mentor. And this is a picture of what Mentor looked like. Mentors don't look like that all the time anymore. So just letting you all know, but this was his trusted friend who served as really the guide and the advisor and the mentor to his son Telemachus. And that bit of information might help you on a Trivial Pursuit game. I don't know, but at least you have it and you know where it came from. But certainly the mentor is more than just someone who's providing guidance or just an advisor. This is someone truly who has gone the way where you seek to go, has walked the walk, talked the talk, and can provide sort of that high-level perspective as well as the boots on the ground insights on what it takes to be successful in your chosen career path. So when we're talking about mentoring, I attend sessions from time to time at various meetings, and at one of the AAMC annual meetings, they were talking about mentoring as assist and facilitate the realization of a dream. I mean, here you all are early in your academic careers looking at research and the research enterprise as a key pillar in what you will do long term in your career. And for most of us who are involved in this, it really is a dream, you know, of what you're hoping to develop. So mentoring can be part of that process and assist in realizing, you know, that dream. When we talk about mentoring, everyone will say, well, you know, if you just do the work, you know, experience is the best teacher, right? You get out there, you make your mistakes, you know, and then you learn from your mistakes and you go forward. And certainly that's a way to learn, and experience is the best teacher. But really you can learn in other ways. I'm not saying don't have experiences, because experiences do have a tremendous impact on how you're going to learn and what you're going to do. I have learned more from my mistakes than I've learned from my successes. I prefer to learn from successes. It feels better, but honestly, you know, the papers, the grants get better when they're rejected and you have to go back and rethink them. So knowing that experience is the best teacher, but there are other ways to learn, part of what we want to talk about today are the ways that we can facilitate this and look at ways that you can, you know, to your outcome in a much more expeditious and efficient way. So the key factors in doing that are looking at the mentors, right? And those are the people who will provide this guidance, as well as your role as mentees. And of course, the mentor-mentee relationship happens in the context of an environment. both internal to where you are in your organization or institution, as well as external, which are those that are outside of your organization but have expertise and experiences that you can leverage and grow from. So when you go to look at identifying a mentor, many times, people think, well, I just need to find someone who's going to support me. I can just ask a senior person and that will suffice. But honestly, if you're thoughtful and strategic about it and you identify and you realize the characteristics of a good mentor, it can make for a much better engagement in the process and a much more fruitful and productive communication as well as collaboration as you go forward. So as you're looking at good mentors or people who you think that might be mentors, these are some of the things that you want to look for. First, you want to find someone who is accomplished in the area to which you seek. So if you're looking for someone to mentor you in research, then you're looking for people who have published, who have grants, who have given presentations, and have done similar things. Sometimes we find, our students and trainees just choose nearby senior faculty to help, and they may be very nice, they may be very good in what they do and very kind and engaging, but they may not be successful in what you're pursuing. So if you want someone to help you develop publications, you choose someone who has been publishing a lot, not someone who maybe has published one paper in the last 10 years and 5 papers total. Those individuals may be great at other things that they do, but they're not going to be very helpful in getting you to the next phase of your goals, which is to publish papers. So look at individuals who are accomplished in the area to which you aspire, that they can serve as a role model for you in how they handle themselves and how their ethical approaches to research, the way that they engage others. Their track record of mentoring, have they done this before? Have they actually helped trainees and junior faculty get to the next stage of their career is also an important aspect, as well as that they are professional and how they handle their colleagues, how they handle their trainees, as well as the way they approach their professional duties. So people say, well, how do you know? How would you know that the individuals have these things? Well, you all, especially in this time and era with the internet and online PubMed, it's very easy for you to track people and see if they have publications and see if they have grants. You can talk to colleagues and other trainees about how good they were as mentors, and you can find out information, a lot of it online, but also by asking colleagues and other peers. You also want to look at individuals who are respected in their field and are respectful of others, that are trusted to engage in collaborations and are also trustworthy. Those who have the emotional intelligence and empathy to engage in this type of interaction and processes. There are also another set of characteristics that you really want to explore before selecting or finalizing, your mentor or mentor team, and that is to make sure that they will be accessible and available to you, that they are good listeners, and that they act responsibly. Being accessible and available is kind of an interesting thing, because if you're choosing people that all meet the criteria in the top section about being accomplished and role model and they mentor other people, they're very busy individuals. But they have to be willing to make the time and be available to you. And in academic settings, you will find individuals, especially when there's a good match between your career goals and what their experience brings to that relationship. Now, the roles of a good mentor are also many. And they're just supposed to provide me guidance, give me access to their lab, and pay for my trips, right? That's what it should be. But it's really much more than that. And as mentees, and when you're selecting individuals to serve as your mentors, you want to keep these aspects in mind, because this is how you will grow as an individual. Certainly you expect them to teach you their methods and approaches and to be an advisor, right? But sometimes individuals don't think of the mentor as necessarily a supporter of the individual, which you hope that they're going to support and open doors for you and provide an opportunity for you to meet their network, and that's important, but also someone who protects you. So I know early in my career, you know, when you start doing committees and you start working on projects with other people, if you do a good job, everyone wants you, right? If you do a bad job, no one wants you, and then that could even include your mentor. But if you do a good job, many other people say, gosh, that was terrific. Can so-and-so come and work for me? Can they come do this, or can they help me with this project? But if you're doing so much of those types of things, you can't get your own work done. But it's often difficult early in your career to tell a senior person that you don't have time for them, right? But your mentor can do it, and can do it in a way that protects you completely, and can say, listen, they want to do this. They want to be on your committee and to help you, you know, write these abstracts or do these small projects, but I'm not letting them, because they've got too much of their own work to do. They're still balancing with their training. And in order for them to meet their own milestones, we have to put, you know, now once they finish these things, maybe they can assist you. But at any rate, the mentors can serve in a very important role to protect you while they're providing the support and promoting you as an individual, but allowing you not to get overcommitted. This next section about being a critic and a challenger are the hardest things for the mentees to take, because you want people to support you and tell you you're wonderful, you're doing everything great, but where you're really going to learn is when they come back and say, you know, this paper is not where it needs to be. You missed the point on the abstract. You know, the methods that you're using are not the most up to date, you know, and that's how you learn. And so it's important that they know that this is a safe place for them to be able to offer that critique, constructive, of course, and to challenge you in what you're thinking about your goals and what you're thinking about your research. The other roles of a good mentor are this last section, which is navigator, coordinator, and communicator. And the navigator role is also very important. Understand, as you all know, I mean, if you're looking at your career as Mount Everest, right, and you're down at the bottom somewhere, and your mentor, and you can have different levels of mentors. They can be anywhere from the middle of the mountain all the way up to the top of the peak of Everest, right? But their perspective is much different than yours. They've already gone the pathway of what you're trying to do now, and they can see where the landmines are, the pitfalls, and the sand traps are. So your mentor can provide that navigation and saying, listen, don't invest your time in this exercise. I wouldn't recommend choosing this individual as a collaborator, and I wouldn't, you know, I would recommend that you actually focus your efforts, you know, in X, Y, and Z, or present at this meeting, or present at that meeting, or whatever. Those helpful hints can save you a tremendous amount of time and a tremendous amount of stress if you engage proactively with your mentor in those types of recommendations and navigation through your career pathway. Now, the mentee also has responsibilities and characteristics, and that is you. You know, what are your roles in this relationship? Many times, you know, when I'm talking with faculty and I'm speaking with trainees as well, I'll ask the question, who is responsible for your career? I always get a little anxious when there's this long pause that people are saying, you know, well, I'm not, who is it? And of course it's you, right? You're ultimately, this is your career, you're ultimately responsible. It's not your mentor's responsibility, it's not your colleagues, it's not your, you know, your residency director, it's not, you know, the dean of the school, it's your responsibility. And yet others will help facilitate that and foster it, but as soon as you know it's your responsibility, I think that's liberating in many ways, because it gives you the control over what you're going to do and how much you invest in what you're going to do. So when mentors are looking at you, I'll tell you the types of things that they're looking for in engaging in those relationships. The first little bucket that we're going to talk about is really knowing yourself, or what does the mentee bring to the table with respect to their strengths and the limitations. This can be done through a variety. You can assess yourself through a self-efficacy survey. I do this with my K-12 scholars as well, where we ask them, you know, what are your strengths and weaknesses with respect to the academic enterprise in writing articles, writing grants, reviewing articles, preparing data, analyzing data, and be honest with yourself. Don't oversell yourself, because if you oversell yourself, your mentor won't be able to align resources to help you. And they will only be frustrated by the fact that you're not able to do what they thought you could do. And now they've got to reorganize the laboratory around, what you are strong in, and bring in help where you are weak. Being self-directed and self-aware is very important, and some of the aspects can do this. How many of you all have completed independent individual development plans, the IDPs? Career development plans. Okay, so we're now reminding ours that they did it. It's in their mentor contracts. So that we did, where you develop this plan that provides the direction for where you want to go, what your expectations are. A mentee that's focused and motivated, of course, is very important when a mentor, when you're talking with a mentor and they're trying to figure out, of all the people that are who want to work in my laboratory, who are the ones that are a good match, and these are some of those characteristics. The next bucket really kind of matches what we were talking about with the mentor, and this is, if they're going to be offering critique and constructive feedback, well, you need to be open to it as mentees. And sometimes people say, oh yes, I really take feedback well. But the minute you go to give feedback, they can't take it well. No, but that's not the way I like to give my presentations. Or no, I really, prefer this or the other. Be open to constructive feedback. Not everything is going to be applicable to you, or maybe not everything is the right next step, but it is ways that those who have been further up further up the pipeline, if you will, in their careers, can offer this constructive feedback that can help you perfect either your methods, your skills, or your approach to your research. Being flexible and innovative, as you all know, not everything and not every experiment or every hypothesis you have is actually going to pan out. You're going to have to, be somehow malleable, or realize that if you can, massage your research just a little bit, you may have other opportunities open to you, or if you're willing to add a name that gives you more innovation, that this could be an important aspect. Also a challenger. Make sure as a mentee that you are a challenger, that you're challenging yourself, that you're challenging your team to do the best work that you can. And of course, the last section, it would be things that you would expect of anybody who was entering into some sort of collaboration or relationship, that you're hardworking, loyal, dependable, and acting responsibly. The mentor team is an important aspect of how you will be developing as an individual and in your academic career. What we use in our Birch, which is our K-12 program, is a mentor team approach, not just a single mentor. Historically, as you all probably are aware, particularly in the basic sciences, before this emphasis on translational research, mentees, trainees had one mentor, and you did not go outside of the realm of that mentor, or it was considered disloyal or not doing that. But those times have really changed, especially with the emphasis on translational, where you want basic scientists and clinicians talking about the next steps and how to engage in things that are going to actually move the field forward to improve human health, right? But it's also important to know that, and many of you are physicians, at least the group in here, and I suspect many on your other, we seldom have a single mentor. That there are a team of mentors that you may have in developing. I myself have got several that help either on the administrative side, the research side, and then other things that I do in academics. So it's nice to have that pool, because everyone's looking at your career and assisting in different ways. Borrowing from my K-12 program, which is a junior faculty career development plan, you may want to think about the following categories of mentors. Ones that are helping you with your overall career, right? And that's going to lead to your next advancement or your promotion. Not as important when you're in your pre-doc phase, but in your post-doc phase, that becomes very important in understanding what do you need for promotion and tenure, if that's eventually what you're going to do. A subject mentor, someone who really understands the discipline that you're in, if it's cardiovascular disease or infectious diseases or environmental health, that someone who really understands the subject matter and can point you to the latest and greatest and those who are doing the innovations in this area. A methods mentor, And that's someone who's going to help you with how you're going to develop your research, whether it be from statistical approaches, whether it's data collection tools, or it is the analytic approaches that you may want, that you use in basic science and those techniques. So oftentimes you need mentors to help you with that, to understand what the most appropriate methods would be to apply to your data set. And then lastly, an interdisciplinary mentor, someone who represents right out of your comfort zone, right? Related to what you're doing, but outside of the comfort zone. So in the Birch program, for every clinician that I have on the grant, who's doing their career development in a clinical or population science area, they also select a basic scientist mentor that helps them either with underlying mechanisms, biomarkers, and the understanding of how they might be measuring some of the things that they're doing. And that has been quite helpful to many of them because they hadn't thought outside of that box and just hadn't thought about it. So the responsibilities of the mentee, which we've talked a little bit about already, is that, you know, first of all, take responsibility for your career, all right? Secondly, you know, setting timelines and goals are very important, but they do need to be realistic. You need to make sure that you're going over these with your mentor. I do this with my trainees, and sometimes I'll have very early in the career, early postdocs, tell me that, you know, 4 first author papers in 1 year, and there's no data set. You know, so it's an unrealistic expectation, but that's working with your mentor to say, you know, no, let's recalibrate. Let's get this into something that's realistic so that, you know, you build confidence in yourself and in your team. Preparing for your mentor meetings and making sure that they're scheduled regularly. And preparing means, you know, you want to spend an hour or two getting your materials ready, knowing what questions you want to ask of your mentor, what data you want to present to your mentor, perhaps some new literature or new articles that you saw published and you wanted to know their insights with respect to relevance. So spend time getting prepared for your meeting with your mentor. You will find it a much more productive encounter, and your mentor will find it as such as well. And the more things that are mutually beneficial to you and your mentor, the better that relationship will be, and the more you will get out of it for building your career. Timely follow through on all assigned tasks is just really key. Nothing is more frustrating when you're, and you know, even if you're dealing with your peers or colleagues, then you've got something and people don't follow through in a timely fashion. They can fall off the radar. It's a poor reflection on you, but it also is going to delay your science, and lack of follow through might result in fewer meetings that you're able to schedule with your mentor because they're assuming that not enough work has been done. Okay. The next group would be certainly work on developing your skills. And when you're working with mentors, a focus on communication skills is a great one to work on, in addition to the other things you're working on academically. Where you can and it's appropriate, delegate the tasks that you can do so that you could spend more time on the key things that you need to develop. Network as much as you can and as appropriate for your work, building that pool of individuals that you will move forward with in your career. Seek out and create opportunities for growth. I mean, they won't always come knocking to you on your door. Sometimes you've got to push beyond your bounds. Going to conferences and listening to people talk, even if it's not directly related to your field, it can open up doors for you. They have for me. It had me think differently about my research than I wouldn't have thought about. Went up, talked with the speaker, met with them, added tools to my data collection, used a new method in my analysis, and actually came out with something that was much better than what I had thought about before. So always be thinking. Those opportunities are important. These last, bucket of responsibilities for the mentee are also very important. I told you, or we talked earlier about the fact that the mentor may, as in their role as a navigator, may be telling you opportunities that you should engage in, but also telling you opportunities that they would stay away from if they were you, whether that's working with individuals. So your mentors may share information with you, and maintaining the confidentiality of those discussions, as well as the confidentiality of some of the unique aspects of the laboratory or those methods, are going to be important. So make sure you do that. You want them to do that for you, so make sure they do it for you. Make sure that you stay informed about what's going on in the field, new papers, new opportunities in the laboratory or in your unit, and keep your key people informed of your progress. So that needs to happen in a number of ways. One, through your regular update meetings that you would schedule with your mentor or the people who are guiding you. The other is to tell yourself on a monthly or perhaps it's a quarterly basis, you're going to send a one-page summary or outline of what your progress has been to date to the people that are supporting you, so that they know what you're doing on your abstracts, your papers, your presentations. You think everyone will know about your successes and what you're doing, but often people are busy, and your mentors that you've chosen that have got excellent characteristics are going to be busy. They may not know all of your successes. Keep them informed, not only of what's working, but also what's not working, because if it's done in a timely manner, they can help guide you in another way so that you don't continue to go down a path that's not productive, but you can get reoriented to a path that would be productive. Okay. Tools for mentors and mentees. We use a self-efficacy assessment tool. As I mentioned to you earlier, you really want to know thyself, your strengths, your weaknesses, and be very honest. I know when I deal mostly with our faculty, they have a hard time with that 1 to 5, 1 being bad and 5 being excellent, and everyone wants to be 4s and 5s because after all, they're faculty or trainees or they're in medical school, they're top thing. But it's not good for you to, it's not helpful. It's not helpful if everything is perfect, is green, or a 5. So what we've done is more of a green, yellow, red process, where red is sort of warning, you really need to put some effort into this. Yellow is sort of caution, you've got some skill but you could develop more, and then green is you're good to go. And if you can share this type of information with your mentor, then they know where to allocate resources, what to do, what to seek, and what you need help with as well. So be honest, and do that. The individual development plan, we did that as part of your process here for the TL1 program. There are a lot of tools out there. You can Google it and get all sorts of tools for free that you can look at these in developing your own. But these certainly do identify what skills you want to enhance, what is your trajectory for your scholarly products, and the adage has not changed when people say publish or perish in academics. It hasn't changed. You still need to publish or you will perish because you can't get the grants, you can't move to that next phase. So set a reasonable timeline. Make sure you've got it for not only your papers, your abstracts, your presentations, as well as your grants. And then set a timeline. It might be an aggressive timeline. Review it often and then recalibrate as you need to if you're not able to meet some of those goals and deadlines. A weekly schedule is also an important thing to do, where you hardwire the time that you're going to spend on your scholarly work or doing grant writing, or perhaps you want to allocate the time you're doing for teaching or even for clinical service, whatever that is. We have our faculty do this. If you don't hardwire the time, I will tell you everything will encroach on your academic plans. Because you'll say, oh, I can always do that later. You wouldn't do that to your clinic patients, and you wouldn't do that, treat your academic initiatives as if they're meetings with your dean or they're meetings with, a very sick patient. It's very important you hardwire that time. So this is an example of what a self-efficacy could look like. You can outline the own things that you think are going to be important. This is one we use from the Birch program, and looking at what they thought their skill set was in defining and writing research articles related to women's health and sex differences. So you can fill out these forms. When I see the signal that something is not green, then I look at that, okay, describe statistical methodology. I can then recommend, a biostatistics class or an epi class that might be helpful to the candidate for moving their career forward. These career development plans that you did include this sort of needs assessment. Have you outlined who the mentors are? In that situation, some of your mentors can say, your lead mentor can say, I think you need help and you should go to this person or that person to broaden your mentor pool. Or sometimes you may have selected people that do not have the expertise that's going to help you move forward. And your lead mentor may say, I think this is great, keep this individual as a colleague, but as far as a mentor and moving you forward, I would recommend you select another individual who has NIH funding, is actively publishing, because that's what's going to be helpful when you submit your NIH, award. Okay. On this development plan, you want to include all of these items dealing with your didactic training, what you still need, the interdisciplinary research, what you would need for professional advancement, the scholarly products, and then importantly, what resources you're going to need to move this forward. So resources are part of that discussion with your mentor, and being honest with yourself on what you should be doing and what you may need assistance with to get it done. So these links, again, I wouldn't worry about the links. I would just go to Google and just type in career development plans, individual development plans, and you'll see a number of them that can give you some guides as you get to different stages of your career. A plan, this is just an example of one that we have some of our group do, where they're looking at the different years that they may be in their training program or their career development program, where they're sort of laying out what they think their goals are, what they propose their goals to be for peer-reviewed publications, abstracts, grants, whatever. They will also talk about what they're planning to do 1 year and 2 year post-program. So you're not just looking at the very short term, but you're looking at the long term trajectory for where you want to go. Having that long range view while you're working on your short-term goals can be very helpful, because you realize it's part of a bigger plan, and that is helpful not only for you but also for your mentors. This is what I recommend. You do a plan for research, the Sunday through Saturday, morning, afternoon, how you might want to do it. Of course, that looks like you have absolutely no time off, and for some people, I'm one of them, probably don't have a lot of time off. But when you're trying to build your career, there are times you want to make sure that you've got time for your family, and you can hardwire this in your plan, right? And that you've got time for you to have your the work-life balance, if you say. But for most of us who've been in academic careers, it's not a Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 type experience. If you really want to be publishing the papers and writing the grants, you've got to clear the time on schedules. I like Saturday mornings because I'm a morning person. So I can block time off. I do my best writing on a Saturday morning because no one else is calling me. Wonderful. So I can do that. But some people are evening people. They prefer, kind of get in after dinner, then that's the time that they can really settle down and get some quiet writing time. But what you want to do is make sure that you hardwire your academic efforts into your timeline, and make sure that you keep it as a meeting and you don't break it. You don't, just as you wouldn't cancel a meeting with the dean, you're not going to cancel a meeting with your writing, because that's going to be your step to your career and to your advancement. Periodically review where you are, because if you're going in the wrong direction, you really want to find out sooner rather than later. And talking over with your mentor, you don't want to be digging when you don't need to be. For all people in training, and in particular this represents the physician scientist pipeline that was adapted from a figure that the NIH published in 2014, but this applies not just to physician scientists, but other scientists that come into the pool. You come into your training, and over time, you may fall out of the academic route and may go into government roles, may go into a clinical practice or professional practice, or perhaps even industry or research. The things that really lead to people leaking out of the pipeline are some of the following. One is that they don't have enough effective time. Things like the TL1 and the K programs all give protected time, and you want to make sure that you're planning active in an active career. Having effective mentors help, because again, they can navigate, they can support, they can pave the way for you. Also helps to decrease some of the frustration you might experience by trying to go for it on your own without that knowledge and insight from those who have gone before you. There can be challenges if you don't have the right education or the right skills. Taking advantage of programs that give you didactic coursework as well as workshops and grant writing opportunities, take advantage of them because those will help reinforce your activities. Regulatory environment can be challenging, lack of institutional support, and of course we do hear that in many cases people who've accumulated debt, particularly physicians in medical school, that can be a real challenge to stay in the pipeline when you're trying to build your academic career. Having effective mentoring, building those relationships early can certainly mitigate those effects and keep you actively engaged in what you really enjoy doing. I personally find the most rewarding aspect of my career academic side, although I love administration as well. I certainly do enough of it, but it's the balance between the two and the opportunity to advance a field and working in areas that matter, that make a big difference. So things to keep. So the successful relationships we've talked about, self-reflection and being in charge of your career. Developing interactions with your mentor in which both parties benefit. So you want a reciprocal and dynamic relationship, and realize that the whole process of mentoring is a process. It is not just a one-time event. And so many people will have these as colleagues and friends for life. Not all the time, but in many ways, and many times it does happen. Active listening is very important. So it's not that you're just hearing, but you're actively listening, engaging in that discussion, and identifying the opportunities to move your career forward. And of course, looking at the balance of work and life. And people said maybe it's not work-life balance, it's work-life choices, it's work-life adjustments, it's all sorts of things, because there are going to be different times in your career that you're going to have to prioritize getting papers out or grants out, and other times you'll have to prioritize other aspects of your life. But anyway, you'll make those adjustments, and you can work through some of the strategies for doing so and talking with your mentors. So on the key ingredients, we've talked about these, but one of the things important to remember is the last one, is that truly there does have to be a chemistry between a mentor and mentee. You all know it. You know when you go in and you meet someone and you start working with them, and all of a sudden you just mesh and you blend. And there are others that no matter how hard you try, there's just no chemistry. It's just not happening. So it is important. It's hard to measure. You can't really measure it. You get the feeling, you see the interactions, and oftentimes the success of chemistry is measured in the products and the outcomes that you have, in addition to the satisfaction that you have. But if you don't have the chemistry, that happens, and you may need to move on from that mentor relationship and identify someone else with whom you can develop a different type of relationship for which you do have that chemistry. So always be respectful, of course, when you end those relationships, and just say, you know, I thank you so much. I've learned a tremendous amount. My interests are taking on a new direction, and I'm going to be working with, you know, another individual or whatever. But you can end it in a very professional way. Keep them, of course, supportive of what you do, but understanding that perhaps this relationship or this mentoring situation is not going to be productive for both. And trust me, usually the mentor is just as happy as you are when that happens, you know, because they realize it's not going to do it. Now, these relationships do happen within an environment, and I always encourage you as individuals and mentees, seek out the resources in your environment. There can be, as you're going into the next phases of your career, you may find out that there may be, you know, additional tuition support. There may be small grants that can send you to a conference. They may have support for someone else to help you with your statistical analysis. Especially as many of you go on to residencies, you may be looking to continue your academic endeavors, and you'll need that environment and understand who to go to find out about resources that can help you stay engaged. You'd be surprised what's out there. Talk to your peers, talk to the support staff. Don't ever underestimate the knowledge mecca that support staff have in knowing who to go to, who's helpful, and who's got resources, and who you know, would be open to having trainees. So remember to do that. Look within your environment, ask questions, and you may find that there's a lot more support there than what you realize. So we have talked about getting your regular meetings set up with your mentors. You need to do that. Don't ask the mentors to do that because they've got too much on their mind. Find out from them what would be an appropriate time interval. Is it monthly? Is it quarterly? What would be a great time either for an in-person meeting, and then what would be an important way to update them more regularly? Is it an email at the end of every week saying what you've accomplished and what your recruitment goals have been? You know, set that up, but you need to identify what regular means by talking with your mentor. Go to your seminars, go to the meetings, go to your courses, listen to the lectures, meet with people when you're going there, go to the journal clubs. It's more than just the material that's presented. It's the opportunity for you to think and ask questions that might shape your endeavors. It also is the opportunity to talk with people at breaks and to share ideas. Some of probably my most creative aims came out of going to conferences or going to seminars or lectures that I thought, well, maybe this won't be too much, but let me just see where I learned something different that I could apply to a different type of study, and it really grew. So there's a lot that can happen there. In this day and age, everyone wants it just tape it and send it to me on the link. I don't have to go to the meeting. I can just listen to it very fast, and I can get the material processed, and that'll be great. And there's some advantages to that for some materials, but in some ways you may be missing opportunities to think through innovations for your own work and networking with others. Do make sure that you're attending to the scholarly products. So prepare, submit, and present your abstracts. Work with your mentors to improve those skills. Submit your articles for publication, and work with people on grant applications. That's how you're going to learn. Work on the real ones. And then always work to continuously enhance your skills. Doing literature reviews, looking for new methods to advance your research, and other things. The challenges that you're going to have to make sure that you're aware of and are continuously looking to overcome. Some of it is that, as we mentioned a little bit earlier, you don't have the chemistry. You just don't have the secret sauce to make it work. And if that is a challenge, then you need to move on. Do it in a professional way, of course, because you don't want to burn bridges. You never know when your paths may cross again. Please remember that talking is not the same as communication. People, well, I talked to them about it. That's not necessarily the same as communication. Make sure that you're actively listening, hearing what they're saying, and repeating what you think you heard and what you think your action items are. That's very helpful, not only in dealing with your mentors, it'll also be helpful when you're dealing with your patients too. There are a lot of differences with generational issues depending on the delta between your age and the individual you choose as a mentor. We laugh all the time. Those of us in the end of the baby boomers, we're of the mindset that we will die at our desk. We just love work. We're going to do it. The younger generation has probably a more astute view of what they do, and they are more looking at a work-life balance. And sometimes, while both work for both generations, when you mix those together, there can be miscommunication about what's important to individuals. And so make sure that you sort of get on the same plane about what the expectations are and how you can sort of find that common ground, because that can be frustrating for both sides. Remember that although mentor and advisor are used interchangeably, a mentor is much more than an advisor and not necessarily the same thing. And you want to make sure that you're going to be accountable. So as the mentee is this rocket, going forward for professional success, remember that although the mentor may be, a main stream of pushing the individual forward, it happens really within a whole universe of support, including personnel, collaborators, the institution, and other resources that are going to be available to you. So make sure that you're thinking about that and using it. As you're looking at your professional success, then you think, how are you going to measure this? Well, it's hard to measure commitment and inspiration, but you can focus on the short-term measures. And we've talked about some of these already on the scholarly products, but there's also your satisfaction, whether or not you're improving in your skills, and of course, the career trajectory. Where do you go? Do you continue? That's how we're measured as mentors. Did our mentees stay in research, or was their experience so that they decided they would leave it forever? And where did they go to their next step in a fellowship? Are they continuing to engage in scholarly work? So those are measures of success, and they're measures of success for you, ultimately, if that's where your career goes. So this quote was kind of an interesting one. Mentoring is a brain to pick, an ear to listen, and a push in the right direction. But the one that I really like is this one by Steven Spielberg. The delicate balance of mentoring someone is not creating them in your own image, but giving them the opportunity to create themselves. So I hope that you all will do that. Take advantage of the opportunities and the mentors and the resources that are available to you. Use what they've done, but create yourselves, because it's your career, and it's what's going to advance the science in ways that's going to make a real difference in what we do in medicine going forward. So thank you. Are there questions? Are there questions that I can answer?
So this is Emily Levitan. I have a question. So you have that sort of leaky pipeline, and I guess the question is, how do we support students who decide that that's actually what they want to go into industry, research, or government? Because I think certainly we want to support people who want to stay in academics, but that might not be the right career path for everybody.
Well, I think that individuals do need to be supported in what they ultimately want to do, right? And so if industry is the right next step, or the government is the right next step, and that's where they ultimately want to be, then that's the perfect way to go. If they're choosing those pathways because of other issues, they haven't been able to find effective mentoring, or because of debt, those are some of the things that we hope that with mentoring, individuals can find strategies to keep them where they really want to be. Effective mentoring, though, can result in individuals being mentored to pursue alternate careers, and that's a positive, right? Because we've got people that are well trained going into other industries that can support what we're doing collectively. Other questions, comments, thoughts, challenges that you all are having mentoring or approaches? Okay, well, we can wrap up then this morning. Thank you all for being here. I enjoyed having the opportunity to meet with you all, and I wish you the best in your next pathways.